All right, we ready to talk about my painting? Is that what we're here for today?
And good morning, sports fans.
It's right over my shoulder. I can't miss it.
Your painting is the highest. It has the highest bid, which is it only had 2 bids.
That's 2 more than Mark's?
That's 2 more than Mark's
and mine
and Veronica's.
That's
so
the month.
Get your bids on.
The month is not over. People, listen up. Listen, please.
People, listen.
We've got some quality art that's going to
Linda.
make that look like a 2-year-old's refrigerator painting.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that's where that belongs, on Manny's mother's refrigerator at home.
Maybe
I'm not talking about my mom.
Maybe Manny's mother's bought it.
We've
That was hard
confirmed
to
that,
say.
and
Oh.
the highest bidder knows none of us. He just met us for the first time.
Right.
Uh,
So the bid is at $50 for Manny's and 0 for the others.
and it's winter chicken dinner.
But
So
we've got one more week.
If
This
you guys
is-
don't know what we're talking about, go back through the podcast. It was called Art Therapy. Was it called Art Therapy?
Art therapy.
yeah,
Yeah. So bid on
it's
it.
the one where Veronica was copying the teacher. Remember,
Oh, yeah.
she was looking over and she was just drawing.
Oh yeah.
But in honesty, I mean, she did the best rendition of the painting.
The
Of
teacher
the-
did.
Of the object.
The teacher.
Well, the teacher did, and
she
Veronica was
copied the
second
teacher.
best. And Veronica's is up for sale.
It is.
Veronica's painting.
Okay, so we are back. This time not in our normal spot, which is this is going to be our normal spot now. Is this wonderful studio in the office that we've acquired, and hopefully in this wintertime, when it cools down, we'll do it back again in the backyard. People like that one.
But
Mark, why are you stepping away from the mic? Oh, because you're taking a drink.
but if you
Yeah, we don't want to hear that.
we haven't been able to post because the new studio has been problematic for
Hey.
us so far.
We are
So
nowhere
we're gonna
near.
we're gonna hope that this works out.
It's gonna work.
Today's-
I've got good feelings about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it wasn't our fault. We were just learning as we went. And I didn't take any courses on this nonsense.
No, you're
We
doing
figured
good.
it out though. Had they watched the prior to us going on camera, a lot of innuendos with penises and inserting things into holes.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Trying
it was
to-
just a microphone.
And somebody took a picture of their finger. I don't know.
Oh jeez. Oh jeez.
That's what they said.
It's never going to be on the internet, so don't worry about it.
Everything is on the internet.
Yeah, but I got a Zorro mask on, so nobody knows it's me.
Oh, jeez.
Well, now they do.
Oh, no. I ruined it. I ruined it.
All right, what the hell?
All right, so we asked people to put in for if they had any requests or topics they want to talk about. Somebody actually reached out.
What?
Yeah. Of the 89 or 88 followers, one of them reached out and said, why don't you do a topic on stigma? Like the stigma of having PTSD and what comes along with that. Because it's not just the stigma at work. As you know, 3 of us here are retired. And then there's stigma after, right? You got to, people hear you like, what, did people tell you congratulations when you retired, Veronica?
They're
Like,
like,
oh, so
"Oh,
fucking good for you.
Right, or like, oh wow, you don't look old enough to be retired. Things
Yeah.
like that.
I'm like, man, fuck you.
I'm not, but
I shouldn't have been retired in the
Do
first
you tell
time.
them? Do you tell them, Veronica?
why? No, I usually say I got really sick or I had an injury. You know, I say something. I don't ever, unless I know them and they're like,
wait, hold on, because she just said that's key. That's stigma.
I was
Right,
gonna
oh,
say,
Yeah,
you
so
don't,
she's
you don't say
rolling
the
around
4 letters,
it
right?
depends on who I'm talking to. But yeah, most of the time I don't. I'll
Right.
just say
What is the depending factor? If
probably whether
If they're
people,
cops?
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
I don't. I tell everybody, anyone and everyone that will listen to me.
Yeah.
I will tell them, and I get the response that, for the most part, that I expect to get,
Which is?
which is
like silence, deer in
Yeah,
the headlights.
like
I
they're
don't.
like they're so sorry, you know.
You're broken.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but it doesn't. I don't think it affects. But see, I don't worry about telling people, so I don't know if it's different.
You don't worry about telling them about this about your PTSD?
Yeah, I don't worry about it. Like,
I
I flat
feel
out-
like it makes people the perception of you like you're incapable now, or you're
They're
know
gonna
what I
treat you
mean?
differently,
Right, because now there's something wrong with you
Yeah.
instead of just like I have these issues that come and go and I can manage them. and they don't affect, you know what I mean, like my business or things like that. My parenting, they don't have like a major effect on anything. So I feel like
Let me
if
ask
I
you
say-
this. Because as soon as you say that and you said, yeah, you see that you're broken and then they feel you're limited
Mhm.
and all these other things. So do you almost see like, an invisible arm going up to where they want to distance themselves from you?
depending on
And then you gotta work your way through that. Like you have to say, no, but it's not all that. It's not like I'm
It's
gonna
not
go into
contagious.
McDonald's and
Right.
shoot the
It's
place
for
up.
sure not contagious.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
contagious. I'm not gonna go into McDonald's and shoot the place up and they
Right.
tear it down and turn it into a national
Well,
monument
and like when I
or
first
something.
when all this first started for me, I feel like at work all the guys that I worked with and whatnot, all of a sudden everybody was like trying to take care of me, like where before they knew I could handle my own out there,
Mhm.
all of a sudden they were like, oh, just don't let her do this or keep her from that. Like I was just this flower that if I got near anything, I was just gonna fall apart.
Fuck,
or
I was a
something.
weed. Nobody
That's-
came to like try to take care of me. All
But
right,
that's frustrating.
Well,
isn't
you
it?
were-
Right,
Well,
yeah,
you went
because
back
I
to-
didn't want to be treated like
No.
that.
Manny, you went back to the street knowing, but no one knew.
no
that.
one knew.
No one knew what you were.
And that's what
diagnosed
I
with.
guess maybe that's where we should start with stigma. So there's different stages of stigma with this.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll start with the stigma of when you first get diagnosed and you're still working, unless somebody here got diagnosed after they were working. I mean, retired,
Mm-mm.
right?
Well, working. Don't say working because working and being on patrol are two different things.
Well, because
By
we end up
far.
going back, but I'm saying when you get diagnosed and you know you're going to go back, and we'll just kind of round robin that. Maybe I'll let Mark go first because you're the one that has the most seniority with PTSD. You've been diagnosed for fucking ever. So
Coming up on 15 years.
so when you went back to work, because did you go back to work after your shooting?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you went back to work
3 days later.
Wait. After diagnosis.
After
diagnosis,
I think I had maybe 3 days.
3 days off.
No, after the diagnosis. But the doctor wanted me off the street immediately.
Okay,
Wait,
so
you
let's
worked
go.
3 days. You worked 3 days knowing you had PTSD, but did anyone else know that you
No.
had PTSD on the street?
No.
That's the difference.
Nobody.
Right,
knew.
but let's go back because we've all heard Mark's story, especially us here. 3 days after that, which is normal procedure after a shooting, you get 3 days off, you go back.
Right.
You knew something was wrong after that.
Yeah,
So,
instantly.
The stigma,
So jumpy,
start with
so
that.
edgy, and so nervous.
did you tell anybody about the edginess, the reoccurring dream, the loop? Did you tell anybody? What
No.
was the stigma? Why? That's the question.
Because
What
I
were you worried about?
worried about my coworkers thinking,
You're a pussy.
no.
No.
I would.
I was worried
No.
about my coworkers thinking, click, he just lost it. He just lost his mind. Like
Because of the
this
shooting.
dude's effing crazy and is off the hook, like right now.
I don't want him on my calls.
Yes.
That's what I would
That
think.
that's what I was worried about
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
was out there.
So
was
that's what I mean.
So
whether they
before-
thought I could do the calls anymore.
So before we go any further with that, was there anyone in this room who ever thought about that in their career with a coworker?
Oh yeah,
You
Yeah.
you
Oh, yeah.
immediately think that. That's
Certainly.
why the PTSD diagnosis is a career killer. It's
Yeah.
not because it's going to end your career necessarily.
No.
It's
Right.
going to.
and you're right. So I've seen that in my department. There were 3 guys that I know of off the top of my head, and everybody was like, "This guy's like losing his mind." Like, one guy would come in to after he'd arrest a dude and he was booking him. He'd put on like these glasses and like the eyeballs would fall out of him on springs, and he'd be like, we don't have to, I mean, the show's over. You're
Maybe that
already
guy was just-
arrested, so
maybe it's
let's just have a good time with it.
What?
Oh.
I mean, like,
Maybe
yeah.
you're just a prankster.
Yeah, I was going to
No.
say that's
No,
weird,
because
but-
it went in a second. He went from a normal, professional, and all of a sudden, he was like
You think it was
out
a
of his
second.
mind. Yeah, it was exactly. But he started manifesting those things where it was undeniable at that point. And so that was what I was afraid of. I was
You
like,
were afraid of being him.
yeah. I was like, I don't want to be like that
You
guy.
don't want to put those funny
I
glasses
don't want to be
on.
like that bike cop that
Yeah.
he just like quit coming in,
Yeah.
because he had lost his mind and everybody had seen it, and or the guy that attacked another dude in the upstairs lobby. It's like,
It
what?
happens. It
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, but none
Totally
of that.
normal.
Yeah, exactly. So all of that kind of stuff goes down, and it's like, man, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to do. I don't want to act out like he did.
You don't want to be seen as that guy. Not that you would.
Yeah, because
not
I
that
mean, you
wouldn't
talk about
Who
be
cares
him,
if you
right.
were gonna
because just
do
like what
stupid shit.
Veronica said earlier, when you said PTSD, man, they put that hand out like a Heisman Trophy statue.
Well, that
and they
was
just, like,
before. So this
shove
is
you away.
before, though. So before you've got the diagnosis, you know you're fucking reliving this shooting.
Yeah,
You're not sleeping.
yeah. And here's what I knew. So when I would say, you do your normal stop or something like that with somebody up on the street that you self-initiate or something.
After a critical incident.
Yeah, and you say, all right, you're talking to them, and you're trying to, get some juice going on it or whatever, and you say, all right, you got an ID on you or something like that, and they'll reach for their ID, and I'm like,
Calm down,
bam,
big.
and I skinned that leather so fast, man, it looked like a quick draw competition, and because I thought that dude was yanking a gun out.
Right.
And then I said, okay, well, he's a little shady, so maybe that wasn't all that. Maybe I'm just, being really vigilant, and I'm trying to rationalize it myself. And then I stopped this lady. And
With
she's
6
like a
kids.
mom, just as wholesome as could be. And I said, okay, ma'am, do you got your driver's license on you? And I was like it was a wreck. That's what it was. And I said, you got your driver's license on you? She says, yeah. And she goes, shoo, and she jammed that hand in to that. And the way she put it in there, not like opening the purse, like opening up a clam or something, and was
Yeah.
going to reach in there. She like jammed in, and instantly I'm thinking, hand a gun.
Yeah.
Boom! And I skinned that thing out again. And she's like, oh my God. I was like, yeah. I said,
Don't make any funny movements later.
Mark, do you remember your off camera today? So
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
no
is.
one can see you, but
I'm
those
off
two over there.
camera. Sorry,
I'm
guys.
just saying.
Let me
I was doing-
recreate it.
I was
Mark,
doing a
Mark,
gun reaction.
recreate it. Mark's like, boom.
Yeah.
No, how did he reach in the purse? That was. The
Oh,
fun
this
part.
was a
That was
crossbody,
good
like
one,
this crossbody.
Yeah, she went cross body and stuck
Yeah.
her hand in that
But
purse.
not slow. It was like
Yeah,
quick.
she like she knew right where she was grabbing. I was like,
It was very furtive.
Furtive.
Very furtive.
yeah.
Furtive. We're
Furtive.
supposed to write that.
Can't
Yes.
spell it, but he used it in a
Pardon.
sense all day long.
I can't even say it sober.
So you, so what, the stigma part of it, what part of that, how much of that stuck with you? How much of that weighed on you, the stigma? How much did that bother you more than anything else?
So at that point, I mean, I had no idea what I had. I had no idea. I just knew I was freaking out, and I knew I was having nightmares. I knew I was starting to see, things flash off in my peripheral vision and stuff like that. And so I knew I was like, man, deep down inside, and we're looking at it in hindsight right now. But deep down inside, I knew something was way wrong. I knew something was wrong, and I knew it was snowballing and getting 10 times worse every week. 10 times worse every week.
But he's not telling anybody.
No, I
No.
wasn't. But what I was doing was I couldn't pull on my 40-hour shift. Like I would work 3 days, and I'd have to bang in that last day. Or
Did anyone ask? Did anyone ask?
No.
No one checked?
No,
one?
because we had so much comp time, and we had, I had vacation time, I had sick time, I had comp time. I got 3 pools to dip out of. But I knew one thing. I couldn't do more than 30 hours of this stuff, man.
That was 25 hours too much.
It was. Yeah, and I was like, hey, you know what? I gotta, I would either, my first day of the week I would call in, or my last day of the week I would call in. And so by the time, I finally went to the emergency room one day, everything was just so far out of my control at that point.
So
and
this-
I was afraid of going in and getting, talking to a counselor and all that stuff, because I didn't want to hear it. And I had no faith in those guys either, because I was worried about the stigma of mental health.
You're
So
worried
what
about,
was-
you're
so
worried
the-
about the actual diagnosis.
Yeah, you were worried.
Yeah.
You were
Yeah.
worried your squad mates were gonna be like,
shit's wrong with you, but you don't want to hear those 4 letters. You're
no,
like, well,
because
Yeah.
you don't want somebody.
I
to,
didn't think they would even say PTSD. I thought they were going to say you're crazy.
You are crazy.
you
Yeah.
were crazy.
No, honestly, I thought they would say, you know what, you're mentally insane or something
Oh, like they commit
that.
you.
Yeah, I thought I was going into a, snug-fitting jacket.
Yeah.
And
that
that
was
was
your
much,
tongue up, Mark.
that
We're
was
putting-
later now.
Putting the meds on.
that was later. But anyway, so, yeah, I was worried about all of that. I was worried about the stigma of, hey, Mark's going to a counselor now and all that stuff. And I was like, No, I'm not doing none of that. Not doing none of that. Not doing it.
That's
well,
why-
because there's plenty of people in your department, as you know now, that are fucked up. They're taking
yeah.
meds and going to counselors. They just don't talk about it.
Right.
So, aside from the department stigma, what about like friends and family stigma? Did you have?
Yeah. So you know
did
who I
people
told?
notice a difference? Like almost immediately, like this guy's a fucking loon, man. What?
You know who the closest person would have been that would have known that was the guy character named in my book, Pete Ronan. He would have known that, and he did see that, and he was calling me on it. He's like, you know, just like, hey, are you doing okay? Are you doing all this? And then when they took me off the street, when I finally got the 4-letter acronym that I didn't ever want to hear, when I finally got that, I mean, he bent over backwards helping me. Like he would let me work at his house, you know, doing yard work or anything I could, because I mean I wasn't even getting a paycheck
Right.
back then. And he was doing what he could, but he knew I was just like off the rails, and him and I were close as a brother.
Did he know you were off the rails prior to you getting taken off the street?
No, he just knew I was drinking like a psychopath, and he knew that I was coming way out of character. I think he saw me coming way hyper on a call, you know, up on a 10 level when it only needed to be maybe a 6.
Yeah.
Well, then
You
I
know,
think they have a stigma as well, right?
Yeah, and
They-
I've seen him like, and I remember him like putting his hand on my shoulder like our logo,
Oh
but
my
on
gosh.
a police call. Then he's like, hey,
Calm
we got
down.
him, we got him.
Yep.
And and that was, you know, that was a 6-month stint from the shooting time to the time I got relieved of duty.
So, how much of that bothered you? The stigma side. How much of that actually? How much did you dwell on that stigma? Not much, or
Still do.
yeah.
Still do. Yeah. It's I hate it because like what Veronica mentioned, who I tell that to, I used to share it with everybody. I was like T over here. I was
Yeah.
like, hey, you know what?
I'm fucking
PTSD.
crazy.
Hey, PTSD. Guess
Yeah.
what? PTSD. And I was doing that, and I mean anybody that would stop for 5 seconds, I'd try dumping that dump truck full of story on them. And now I realize, you know what? You don't deserve to hear that. So I'm not telling you.
What do you mean they don't?
They don't deserve to know that I have PTSD.
Why not?
Because I don't want to walk around with a banner that says, you know, psychopath coming your
No.
way.
It's not walking around
Grab
with
your
the banner.
children.
It's making it so. I think I say it because it's making it so it's not so scary or not so. You know, the more that I say it, the more people would be like, "Oh yeah,
Desensitizing them to it.
yeah."
I got you.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
And I don't walk around with a banner. I mean, I'm a big girl, but
I get that.
I kind
but
of do actually on my shirt.
Actually, you
Oh, there's a
do.
banner.
Yes.
Someday someone
is
will
a
see
ban.
you on the other side of the camera.
But I'll say this. So I don't share it with everyone because like what Veronica mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's like you have to unpack that for them. And it's like, yeah, well, you don't look old enough to be retired. Well, when I retired 15 years ago or 10 years ago,
You did.
You looked old enough.
I didn't look old. Shut up, fool. I'm off camera. They don't know what I look like.
Yeah.
I look like I'm 12.
You look like you
You're
get a
pretty.
discount on your
maybe
birthday.
that's the clothes I wear.
it's the size. It's the size shorts you wear.
It's the 12 shorts I wear.
It might be the
Yeah.
AARP card that you have in your wallet.
Now I look old enough to be retired for dang sure. But no,
So
back then
that's-
everybody was like, and so I would come up with, you know, joking around as like a defense mechanism for me almost on some occasions. And it's like, yeah, you don't look old enough to be retired. And I said, yeah, what is that? Is that good plastic surgery or good clean living?
Yeah.
What's keeping me looking like
Yeah,
this?
it's all the fucking vodka I drink every day.
Yeah, it's
So-
hard drugs.
So,
It's hard drugs.
so you're not even over the stigma now, 15 years later.
No, nowhere
Still,
near.
and it looked like it's taken a turnaround. Before you used to talk about it, now you're just like whatever. I don't have much to say to you.
Yeah. So I don't even roll around with my service dog anymore.
Yeah.
I take her to one place, and that's only to group therapy. It's a pistol therapy.
Yeah.
Other than that, like I don't want people. Oh, hey, what you get that service dog for? I say, oh my
Do
gosh.
Do you think you stopped talking about it because people weren't giving you the? I don't want to use the word recognition, but people weren't giving you the. What's the word I'm looking for here? Like people,
Respect.
I don't even
Acknowledgement?
know acknowledgement maybe, like, okay, like an understanding about you having it, and you weren't getting whatever the satisfaction. I mean, it sounds weird to say it like that.
No,
like,
I get what you're driving at, though.
Like,
Yeah.
people weren't,
It's just
they were not responsive to it. Maybe they weren't responsive, so you just stopped. And you
Yeah,
were like,
what
"Fuck
I
it,
noticed
fuck it."
is the more I took that out, the more people already had a preconceived notion of it. And for me to turn that around for them it would be too much of a time / emotional investment for myself to say, hey, but you know what? It's not what you're thinking. You know, it's not like I'm going to freak out and run out in traffic. I'm not going to harm somebody.
Yeah.
well,
you know, you
because
don't
they
need to be
have their
afraid
own
of me.
belief system of
Yeah,
what
exactly.
that is.
That's
Right.
because you're one person. But now if we have a group of pistol people and we're all doing the same thing and talking about it and doing podcasts, then maybe
So this is the
it's
venue for that.
opening, right.
This is the venue for that. Out on the street or some casual person or some casual contact, and that's what I said. You don't deserve to know it. You
Well,
don't-
we're not trying. I
you
don't
don't
think with the
deserve to know about
podcast we're trying to get officers to show up and be like, "Hey, Veronica, I think you have PTSD. You should take time off."
No.
That's not what we're talking about stigma.
No.
We're talking about when you know somebody's had a legit critical incident like Mark's, somebody who's dead babies, bad accidents, shootings, multi-shootings.
Well, but
You
see,
should be checking on each other. Like, you should just, like, why would you think that
but see,
you're
mine-
okay? They're
they-
okay.
They did not think mine was a critical incident for my portion of it. Like, no one would have ever thought that that was any different than any other part of the call. So how am I supposed to
See, I
spec-
don't know, because I disagree with you, because when I got shot at, people were like fucking checking on me. They were like, "Hey, did you get hit?" You know, a bullet goes over the top of my head, and people were panicked. You kicked that out. Shots fired on the radio.
Well, but
It
they-
amps everybody up. Your
shots
situation,
fired, but I actually said it. He was shooting in the air. Yeah, I mean,
right?
you know what I mean.
But what I'm saying is that the stigma that goes with that is that we're supposed to be able to be okay with those critical incidents. Like, if I, like, when I was talking to the officer that called and said, "Hey, can you do a podcast on stigma?" If we all had one critical incident, if we just worked one day as a police officer and had one critical incident, and we said, "Okay, that fucked me up," people would understand that. But we kept going back to work and kept getting re-fucked up over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Right.
So the reason it when he said that, I was like, that's a good fucking point. I thought we had done one on stigma, but I think we did shame.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
clearly we're seeing it different than what Veronica sees it. No one came to Mark and I and said, that was a bad call, boo-hoo, you're going to be better. And I'm sure when we get to UT, it's going to be different too. They treated you guys different than they treated us. That's our own fault. Because I'm going to look at Mark in a shooting and say, bro, you nutted up. You fucking killed that motherfucker. If it's Veronica or you, I'm going to treat you just a little bit different. I know it's not fair.
Well, I would think it's like incident envy. Mark's situation, whether he killed the dude or not, him getting a fucking gun put in his face and actually shot, that there's no fucking question that you
Right.
should be fucked up from that.
Says you now. Go back to the old T before PTSD,
Yeah.
and you're not going to look at him the same way. You're just saying that. We say that now because now hindsight's 2020.
Exactly.
When I
No, I wouldn't think that. It's hard to answer that now because I do have PTSD. But if you get shot, I have always said that if you get shot in the line of duty, if you fucking have a serious traumatic event,
but there
like
is
that is
no
always a traumatic event. It doesn't matter how fucked
but
up
there's
the
no
other person is.
definition of that traumatic event. What's traumatic for you might be not for me, or vice versa.
Well, obviously.
So
And I wonder, like,
Well-
though, is that the female in us though that is
Yeah,
that
it is.
has
It's
that
more
more
compassionate,
compassion
yes.
and whatever? So
And
because
it's
I
more
know, like,
sensitivity,
I would have
too.
thought
Yep.
the way she's talking
Yeah.
for all of my male coworkers who were in any kind of incident, like I would have went to check on them, like, hey, how just even if I didn't say how are you, just something to let them know I was there,
Mhm.
and kind of and
oh,
if they
I
needed
would have
something.
never fucking
But I don't
turned.
see the guys wouldn't do that to each other.
No,
so I don't
not
know
at
if
all.
it's just more acceptable for a female to come up to you and be like,
No, what
know?
we used to do, we would be like, and there were numerous officers that had been in shootings, and I'd go up to them and be like, hey, good shoot, man.
"Good job,
Yeah,
right?
Good
that's
shoot.
exactly.
Shootings.
Yeah,
With
You know how
shootings,
it is,
okay,
yeah.
let's take Manny's incident
right.
for example. that is we go on drowning babies all the time.
Yeah.
So would anyone think to go up to the 906 on a drowning baby?
What's
and be
906 for Brian?
Backup.
Oh,
wait.
Backup.
Backup.
Yeah,
Backup.
sorry.
Emergency backup.
A backup for the officer that's working the baby as opposed to the backup officer? Do you think anyone would come up to you and be like, "Oh man, how are you doing? Are you okay?"
No.
Never.
No.
Never.
Like never.
Not at all. In
That's-
fact, the officer that was with the baby,
Somebody checked on him.
somebody checked on him.
Yep.
But they didn't know that I was, and I'm not defending it, but they just didn't know that I was with that mom screaming the whole time.
Exactly.
And
That's the
the
difference.
same thing like Veronica's saying, as shitty as it, I have to be honest, and transparency is key. On your critical incident, I would have never asked any of those males if they were okay.
But you would have.
I would have asked Veronica.
Yeah.
And not
would've
Veronica
too. Well, wait,
generally.
wait.
And I don't
But
think that's sexist. I think it's chivalrous.
Well, because of
Yeah.
what
Should-
Veronica
right.
did. Veronica
It is.
actually was the one with the baby, correct?
Right.
Of course you do that. But if the
Even if it was a man holding the baby, I wouldn't have done that.
you
Exactly.
wouldn't
No,
have done it.
I wouldn't have done.
No.
I wouldn't have asked. I would have said, "Hey, bro, you got that? We're good," and we would have
Well,
just
yeah,
rolled on.
but you
to the
say
same
it like
one.
that.
Yeah,
Okay, well that's still saying something, but it's a little different.
yeah, but
Yeah,
I
you
know
got
what the
that.
answer is going to be. Is going to be, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
We're going to take a little bit more time with the females, which is probably not a good thing. We should be taking time for the males as
Everybody,
well,
right.
Yeah.
but
the stigma
the
of a male
stigma-
being more macho and can
Right.
handle it, suck it up, shake it off, walk it off.
which
next
means
call.
that ultimately I have to go back and suffer, and no one's going to check. Not because they don't care. It's just that's the way that the stigma is.
Right.
And so, like for me, in the case of stigma, the other day I was laughing so fucking hard. I told my wife, I said, "You're not gonna believe this shit that happened to me at work the other day because of my fucking PTSD mind. We see shit different, and you don't see him here, but we have a second responder that's hanging out to learn about the podcast.
Is he waiting till it's code 4?
His waiting till it's code 4 to come on screen."
Come on.
And so he's going to be joining us on podcast when he can. When it's code 4, he'll come on. But him and I bullshit a lot about our minds and how we perceive things, what we perceive. And this goes along the lines with Mark perceiving a threat when she reaches for the fucking license or the purse, the gun. So the other day, as you guys know, I'm working again in a non-enforcement capacity, but we just recycled we got all new tough books, and everybody in the room's shaking their head because if you're a tough book, you know what the fuck that is.
Yep.
And we got new computers. We're up on a new RMS system, records management system. We see the calls just like I did. So I'm having to deal with all that old shit that I forgot about for the last 6 years. I see calls. So just like everyone here knows, when something goes wrong, who do you call? The help desk. They're of no help to you whatsoever. They're fucking, I don't know.
They've gotten better
Let
since
me
you left.
upgrade to up, Let me escalate you to my supervisor. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. Just want to go 10-8 on the button here. So
Our help desk was really helpful.
Nah,
Welcome.
that's
It's gotten
Gilbert.
better.
It's Gilbert. So I call the help desk again with stigma. And I call and I said, "Hey, I can't log in. I'm just trying to go 10-8. And I don't know what the problem is. We're new to this system. Can you help me?" He says, "Yeah. Give me your ID number." So I give him my ID number, types it in, and his response, this is his response. It says, "Here, you're disabled."
Shut the fuck
I
up.
was fucking angry.
How do you know that?
Who the fuck are you talking to? You can't use that against me. I'm covered under HIPAA.
Yeah.
You don't know I don't have a
He's
disability.
talking about the computer.
He's talking about the computer.
Dumb motherfucker. Oh my gosh.
I know what? I was angry.
I would have hung
Oh
up on
my
him.
I
I
was
would have been
fucking
like,
mad.
fuck you. And hung up.
I was like, who the fuck's talking
Oh
to these
man.
people?
Oh my god.
HIPAA.
How do you
That
know
is-
that? Automatically.
That
block
is
it?
so what I would do.
Is there-
I would do the exact
Does
same
it say
thing.
under Manny's name, crazy?
Yeah.
PTSD? Disabled. He has a disability, people.
Yeah.
I was so fucking hurt. How do you know I'm disabled?
Did you tell him that?
No, I was fucking. I had the phone like this, and I was like sitting, and he's like, "Shows here, you're disabled," and I'm like,
He looks at the phone like, I'm gonna
Motherfucker
kill
knows I'm
someone.
you know what I thought? Work comp told everybody I was fucking disabled. Those motherfuckers.
That's how
was so
that's how I
fucking
got the
angry.
job.
I was so angry. I was like, I don't have a
man.
disability. suck it. So that's our so stigma
Right.
tells me this motherfucker's making fun of me
Yeah.
because apparently I can't operate a computer
Because you're disabled.
because I'm disabled. And I'm like, and I said, "What you say?" And he goes, "Shows here that your computer's disabled." And I was like, "Motherfucker, you just
Ooh.
saved your ass because I was coming to shoot you."
Exactly.
You're making fun of a disabled person here.
Oh God! All right, that is funny.
So
That is
even with the
funny.
stigma, and so my stigma was similar to Mark's. We are trained in, and as you get outside of patrol and in more specialty units and details, you're that much more the tip of the spear. You don't make those mistakes. You're not weak. You're not scared. You're not the person who's going to say, I'm not comfortable doing this operation.
Oh God, can you imagine saying that to a group
Well,
of anybody?
no.
Hey guys,
So
I'm not comfortable with this SWAT thing that we're about to do.
So
Right?
I'm gonna
What?
I'm gonna tell you a
Your ass
story
is
because
out.
this is a fact, and I know where the stigma comes from. So when I was in the gang unit, we did containments, and I'm not gonna go deep into containments, but that's how we got the bad guys. And we got a new sergeant. He loved containments, and we were gonna do a containment one night, and one of the gang detectives, as we're talking about containment, so there's a front block, a rear block, and then the side, they're shooters. And this detective, as we're going through the ops plan, he says, I'm good with front and rear block, but I'm not okay with being a shooter.
Oh.
And so
Who said that?
that was one of the detectives.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
gonna guess somebody that's no longer an officer.
Well, he's not in the gang unit anymore. So so we're sitting there, and now we're in the middle of this ops plan, and I look over at my boss, and I'm like, why is this motherfucker a detective? Like,
Why
It's-
is he a cop?
yeah, it's gonna-
If
it's
he's
gonna-
afraid to shoot.
it's gonna,
Exactly.
like, the first thing I thought was our unit was known for shooting, and I was like, it's going to come to a chitty bang bang here, and this motherfucker's not going to pull the trigger. That's a different stigma
That's bad.
than what we're dealing with. But I associated later on down the line when I got diagnosed with PTSD, that's what I remember thinking. I'm like, fuck, I became that detective that was scared. Like, that's how they're going to perceive me.
Because that was your perception.
That
of
was my
PTSD.
perception. It had nothing to do with theirs.
Exactly.
No one on my department ever said, hey, you're weak because you have PTSD. That was my perception. But that's the scenario that I went to was I can't deal with the problem at hand, how I dealt with it. The perception of what they would think of me and the stigma that comes along with it. Why can't Manny handle this mom screaming? And it wasn't the mom screaming that I couldn't handle. It was the fact that she stayed in my head that I couldn't handle.
Right.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And like as time went on after after I went through therapy and even in light duty, right? They send me to light duty. They say, hey, you're going to call back. You're just going to take calls. And people would come in and they'd be like, you know, hey, what happened to you? And I'd be like, hey, I hurt my back. Duty belt hurt my back.
Right.
Because that was the quickest way to get people off my shit. Because the person next to me had the same problem. Why are you on light duty? Hurt my back. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, surprisingly enough, I was working with an officer in callback one time. We were both on light duty. Both of us, by our own admittance, hurt our backs. Well, I believed he hurt his back. Right?
Dummy.
But what I came to find out after I retired was he was struggling with PTSD, and he was sitting next to me the entire time.
And neither of you knew it.
Neither of us knew that, but we both used the same excuse. We both respected each other. This officer was a particularly good officer. He knew his shit. He made felony arrests over misdemeanor arrests, and yet we felt it necessary to lie to each other because of the stigma. And I thought it was after going through this and thinking about the podcast, I thought it was kind of sad that I was sitting next to somebody who was using the same excuse as I was, and all I had to, either one of us could have just turned around and said, hey, I'm struggling with this fucking call, and these are the things I'm doing.
That's beyond sad.
Let's
That's crushing.
Let's just fucking
Man.
be honest and get it in the open.
You know how much therapy you guys could have given each other?
Right. Yeah.
Inadvertent therapy through
Right.
that camaraderie
Yep.
Yeah.
and sharing like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that stigma, it's a tough thing. It's like going to school, or it's like going to work with in your underwear or something. It's like you just don't want to be seen like that, man.
Well,
You just
You're
don't want to be
exposed.
seen like
You're
that.
overly
You're
exposed.
so vulnerable. It's like,
Like,
uh-oh.
oh man, this is
Man, everybody knows what I'm
say,
about
my
now.
God, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay,
You're not packing what you said you were, Mark.
no, I don't go that way. I'm proud of it.
what Mark is saying. So when he has it, but he's back on the street. Yes, he's hyper quick to go for his gun. So is that where the stigma comes from? Because I had so much fear that I was going to go back out onto the street. I was going to get put back in patrol, and I was so afraid to see a cop shot in the face was my issue. So I was so afraid. I probably would have been horrible on the street had I gone back out there. Like Mark's saying, anybody reaching for anything or furtive movements, I would have freaked the fuck out.
Yeah, but you know what? It's funny. All of us here have gone through active shooter class, right?
Yeah.
When you go through active shooter class and then you have to go 10-8 from that class, how alert are you after that class?
Oh, you're
Super
amped.
yeah, like, hey,
amped up.
hey, go, fuck it. What are you reaching for, kid? Jelly beans. You're like, hey, calm down. But
Jelly beans, you can put an eye
yeah,
out.
you're like, hey, you can choke on those motherfuckers. Because you're already.
Quit being so reckless with jelly beans, fool. What's wrong with you?
Is that the jelly bean that tastes like booger?
Nobody
But-
likes licorice.
So I would think back that it was like active shooter. You're just already hyper vigilant, but that never goes away for you, right?
No.
Like you're just always on at a 10
Always.
in the red.
I
Fucking
didn't have that
frustrating.
with while I was on patrol though. I never had that where I felt like where I was hyper vigilant about anything. I mean, for me, after no. I mean, I was hyper vigilant on my personal time, like if I was at the store or driving, things like that. But while at work, I really wasn't. I mean, I had more physical symptoms. I had, I had like really bad headaches. I had I always just say the rapid heart rate, it was anxiety obviously, but for me it was just like I could just feel my heart beating crazy, and I didn't like that. But I didn't have I remember being angry and shorter with whoever we were dealing with, but I didn't have like that hypervigilance on patrol.
Gosh. I still have it. I wish that shit
No, I have it. I'm retired.
I wish
Yeah,
that
same.
shit
I can't
would
even go to a
away.
fucking
It's
Quick Trip
fucking-
without fucking.
I
thinking
drove
somebody's
over
gonna kill
here
me.
and wanted to like jam 3
Yeah.
people up.
Somebody
on the ride
fucking
over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no way I could go back on patrol because just the fact that I have it in the street on a Sunday, what the fuck?
Fuck, if somebody says, "Hey, you're disabled," I think it's me. It's not the computer. Like
wonder-
I'm that edgy.
That makes me think. I wonder if because but see, you have it and yours wasn't I always think like the gun going off and the quickness of getting the injury as opposed to a different scenario
Right.
would be different, but it can't be because of
No,
anything.
because I have the same. Veronica has the same thing.
Well, she says she doesn't have didn't have it on patrol, which is
Right.
so strange to me.
And I remember, like, I had a really good friend of mine who, he was one of the first to leave with PTSD. And I remember talking to him while he was still on patrol or right before he left, and him mentioning, like, what you said about being on those traffic stops with soccer mom and like seeing her reach and think she was going to go for a gun. And it was those moments for him where he was just like, I can't do this if that's how I'm going to respond to soccer mom. Like, I need, but he was involved in a shooting. And so.
But you didn't have that?
Not on patrol, no. I mean, when I was not feeling well, like, I was just angry and, like, like, I remember a call where we had just a shitty mom, and I contacted DCS to come to get her kids, and she was trying to take off with them, and I was like, I will take you to jail right now. You're not taking these kids. And she opened the door, and she told the kids, they're taking you away because of her.
Oh,
and I
of
wanted to
course they
kill
do.
her,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
and I was just like, and I remember, like, just in her face, in a way I never would have been before. I would have been more rational and tried to, like, maintain my cool for the kids and stuff. I was in her face wanting her to just do something so the fight could be
You
on.
just beat the shit out of her
like,
right then and there.
And I
Yeah.
remember my buddies, he was acting supervisor that day, and he was watching from a couple parking stalls away, and there was a point where he was like, V, and, like, just turned me off, right? He was like,
Yeah.
it's enough, and I was like, all right. Like, it took that for me to realize I was so involved in that more than I would have been
So-
under
Do
normal
you have a
circumstances.
startle effect?
a what?
Startle effect.
effect. Like
No.
if you
Like
hear,
if some motherfucker pops a balloon behind you, are you
Oh, I
losing your
do.
shit? I lose my
you
shit.
don't have that.
And then
Uh-uh.
not,
I
not
would
only
lose
do I
my
jump,
shit.
not only do I jump, but then I want to beat that
Yes.
person for making my adrenaline
Dude,
spike out like
Somebody
that.
drops a fucking
It's like,
pan or something.
oh,
I
slam,
lose my shit.
slam a cupboard door.
Yeah.
I'm gonna smash you in the face.
I have a motherfucker at work that thinks it's funny when I'm sitting there reading with my back to the door,
Yeah.
reading reports. He comes in and gets right close to my face real quiet and goes, "Hi."
Oh my
And
god.
I want-
Oh, I've had
And you
Why is that
have
guy
it?
not dead?
Right.
I've had family do that to
Yeah.
me, man. I was like,
That
are you kidding me,
fucking-
man? That's not funny.
That
Yeah,
fucking
no,
makes
that's
me
it.
funny.
It's weird because when I went back to work at the bank, I realized how fucking crazy I was because in their world they like to celebrate shit, right? Like they like to happy birthday, yay! They like to throw surprises when you walk in the room. You know what I mean?
I remember that story.
In all reality, that's where normal people live. That's not where I live. You can't just come up behind me.
No. Even 4th of July shit.
No,
like,
yeah, 4th of July is a
like, I
fucking
can't-
mess. I know they're coming.
I know
they're coming.
too.
I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
hey, there come the booms.
Yeah.
And
Right?
you still have to hide.
I'm
Yeah.
such a moron. I thought this year I'm getting out of the country for the 4th of July. No, seriously. I'm going to Mexico,
Oh, great.
which was worse because
Yeah.
somebody told me, no, you moron. They totally cater to Americans down there for 4th of July.
Yeah.
And they make fireworks and nothing's illegal. And everything's blowing up down there like,
Oh God.
like
Yeah.
the 4th of July.
So, Veronica, let's get back to you and the stigma. Did you? And I'll come back to T in a minute. But did you have? Were you worried about stigma? What
for
stigma
sure.
were you worried about
Well, at first,
as a female?
yeah, because I feel like my whole
Absolutely the
career I
female.
had to prove something. Like I had to be tougher and stronger just to prove that I could hang with the guys. And then when it all happened, and all of a sudden I was not feeling well, and I just felt, and people knew something was wrong with me. I feel like it was at that point that all of a sudden I was just a female again. Like I was just that female they don't
Oh,
want
it's just
on
a
the
girl.
call. You know, they don't want.
It's just
you
a
on-
girl. She can't
because-
handle it.
And,
Dude.
and that's it. And that's a real thing. And I'm guilty for saying that about some female officers because they can't. Like there are some that should
Oh,
not be
I've
working.
said it too, and it's terrible.
There's guys
And
that
it
are
is
like
too.
that too.
Guys,
Well, that's
too.
true.
It doesn't
Well, that's
matter.
true. That is true.
Yeah.
But when you're that female, like I feel like your whole career, you have to fight to maintain your ability the perception of your ability to go out there and handle it. Because when shit hits the fan, a lot of guys will, want the other guy, want the SWAT guy, want
They
that
don't
guy.
want the
They don't
girl.
want the chick there.
That's
And-
well,
Not me. There were plenty of times that I asked for females, and
and I'm bigger than the average female. So
Yes.
I don't know if it was different for me, but
No.
I still felt it in the smallest thing.
You know,
I
it
don't
wasn't
know.
so much that. Like, there were times that I asked for females because a male would fuck. They'd
Yeah,
send
they
somebody
did.
and they would fuck. Testosterone would kick in,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy'd be like, "I'll
Yeah.
kill every one of you motherfuckers."
and you can't have too
then-
much of that.
Yeah,
Right.
God
Exactly.
forbid you
There's
throw
no
more
balance.
testosterone into the fucking balance.
No balance.
Well, the girls don't want to fight. The girls want to be able to use our words so
Right.
that we can get out of a fight because we have no interest in fighting. But you guys are like,
people.
"Ooh,
Oh yeah,
let's go.
you
See,
people
bad
in
guy
your
killed
logic.
that guy.
Yeah.
Well, but the thing is that and I'm guilty of it. I think everyone is, and it's not fair, but it's a reality. Is that I'm not going to let you. First, you're not going to touch my sergeant. You're damn sure not going to touch my lieutenant, and God forbid you touch
The female
a female
officer.
fucking officer.
Yep.
It's game over.
Yeah.
But I'm saying from a PTSD standpoint, did you think you not being able to get past that shooting gave you a stigma of being weaker than
Yes.
any officer or just male officers?
Just any in general.
Just in general.
Mhm.
So even though you saw those officers struggling, you had to be strong for them? Or
Yeah, I think so. And I think, but some of that, I mean, was probably on me because that was just kind of my character throughout my career with my patrol, my patrol friends. But that day of that incident, like when I realized they were all like, oh shit, what's going on? Like they were all freaking out in their own very silent way. I could tell because you could hear it in their voice. You could see it on facial expressions. None of them went and talked about it afterwards. And I don't, only me and one other officer talked about it. But I felt like in that moment that I had to not have any, any of those mom emotions or whatever, so that
You
to
mean
help
real
them.
emotions,
Right.
not mom emotions.
Real
Like
ones.
you should be fucking sad you're holding a dead baby.
Yeah.
Everybody, it doesn't matter if you got a fucking penis or a vagina. It doesn't. You should have normal fucking emotions. We
Yeah.
just didn't have that.
Right.
You would never break down
No.
a stigma. It's an appearance of being weak, and
Well, look at who we are too. Let's look at this. So when T was talking to you earlier, I was watching that and I was like, yeah, nobody came and checked on you, but let's take this out of take a badge off all of us, and we're just a bunch of office workers, and you went through that. I guarantee you everybody in a cubicle in an office situation would come over to you and say, Manny, that must have been just horrible.
Oh yeah.
And I would
Yeah.
too. I
Yeah.
would too. Like
As a normal human being.
as a normal
Yes.
human being, like when I was
Yeah.
selling real estate or selling cars, or even when I was in the military, if I would have known somebody went through that in their personal life, I would have smothered them, man, like a compassionate
Well, we
human
did that
being.
on calls. We did that
Yeah,
with people.
with the victims,
Right, we
exactly,
were
right?
always
The
that
moms
person.
and the kids when they saw mom and dad getting in
Yeah.
fights.
well,
and
there
stuff,
was
we were
just
all over it. But
just-
us as cops were like,
yeah. Well, just
next. Hey, there's a
Yeah.
call holding in queue.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
You got this.
Hey,
you
Who's
got
Who's
that
going
one?
10-8?
It's
Yeah.
your
take
beat.
that call on your
Who's gonna
beat.
go
It's
take
your
that?
beat.
Yeah.
I'll go take that so you
And
get the paper on
unfortunately,
this.
so that's just another. I just look at it as we're just like being forged, man. We're in this fire daily, and we're just getting this beat by this hammer, and all this slag is flying out of us. Call after call after call after call, and at one point, you couldn't take another strike from that thing.
Well, what I was going to say, just recently in the news, here in Phoenix, a guy decides to run down the neighborhood at like 2 a.m, starts popping off rounds, hitting houses. He basically did a walk-by, started popping off rounds. Then he goes to one of the houses, he kicks the back door in, starts shooting rounds, and the female in the house runs out, runs to the neighbors, and then they get police. They get the guy in custody ultimately. But they interviewed the neighbor who took the female that was the victim, and she's like, I don't think she'll ever be right after that. and I was like,
Absolutely won't
that's
be.
right. She's not going to be right. But
Yeah.
we're the ones going to get the crazy motherfucker that, was shooting it all up. And,
And know you're about to go gun to gun.
Yeah,
with
you're
an
gonna
active
go-
shooter
right.
who's most likely on dope.
Right.
So,
and
yeah.
even in active shooter scenes, one thing I can honestly say, and I'm not saying this now because I'm retired, I never questioned any of the females on my department, ever. I did question many of the male officers
Yeah, same.
because not once did I ever think that the female would not put in the work that she needed to put in. But there were many males that proved that they would not put in the work. We did have male officers who went down for cowardice acts, never a female officer. And the stigma, I mean, I'll ask T and Veronica, and I'm sure if we ask our spouses, even our special guest with our spouses, they see us as heroes. And we didn't, that was one of the things that I never wanted to come. I didn't want the stigma come home that I could not do the job. And just this last weekend, my very good friend who's a second responder, we killed a bottle of Jameson together. And we have this perception of us, stigma. We didn't want to be perceived as weak with our spouses. This is after work stuff. But our families, you've always been the person that takes care of the family, make everything safe. Unlike Veronica, but we're the ones who make them feel safe. And when you're the one that's not okay, like you're scared now, then you wonder who the fuck is going to take care of you because you're the one that fixed everything.
In the lesbian world, just so you're aware, that would be
Rainbow
the same,
Bright.
That would be the same thing because it's no different in my house than it is in your house with me being the
And I'll
protector.
say, in my house, I am that person too. So
Hopefully he doesn't watch the podcast.
oh, he would.
He's
would
gonna-
say,
he's
would,
gonna
he would-
comment.
He knows. Like, and my kids know. Like, I was that person for them. So when I started struggling, like, it took me a long time to realize that it was affecting them or that they even knew something was wrong because I was so messed up. But I remember when I finally told them, and it was probably almost a year or so later, and only because I was leaving the PD that I mentioned to them, like, all right, this is what's been going on. And I thought they were all going to be like scared or like embarrassed.
Who are you talking about? Your kids?
My kids.
Oh, just your kids.
And they were like, no, leave. Like, they knew that something was wrong, and they were all like, no, just quit. Like, we don't want you there anymore if that's what this is doing to you. And so contrary to what I had thought the whole time, like, that they thought that they would see mom weak, where mom had always been very strong for them. It wasn't, you know, it was, my reality was different than actual
That's a
reality.
fucked up thought
I
process.
don't think kids
do
are going
you-
to see weak and strong. Kids
No.
are going to see that you're either doing what you're supposed to do or you're not doing what you're supposed to do.
I
What you've
wasn't-
always done.
I wasn't really worried about the kids.
I'm with you though, Manny, on the spouse thing. My spouse, or my girlfriend at the time, but I never told her any of that. I was like, no way.
Well, one of
Not
the
only
things.
am I not going to tell my coworkers, I'm damn sure not going to tell her.
No, one of the things I struggled with a lot was telling my spouse that I was scared to go to sleep. Like, I don't know, and even when I say that in group, when we're in the pistol groups and stuff, and I'm like, I literally will fight to go to sleep. I don't know if Mark's like that or
Oh, yeah.
Veronica. Are you? She doesn't have any of the fucking symptoms.
I mean, I
at
have
all.
like all the
Do you
nightmares
really,
and
are you
shitty
really,
dreams.
do you really have
Do you really have PTSD?
I
Knock
do.
it off.
Holy shit.
Don't ever say that to somebody in this room. Are you kidding me?
She's just here for the fucking free whiskey. That's what she's
Idiot.
fucking here for.
I don't have the sleep thing either. Like, I could go to sleep
Anytime.
7
Like,
p.m.
I
or
literally
any
would-
time of
yes.
day. Like,
I would get
Yeah.
home right after work and crash.
You were
for
just
the night.
exhausted.
Yeah, like it was
Exhausted.
just so much that I literally
So
would get
does
home and just
Dumb.
be
so
out.
do your two brains shut off?
Mine does. I'm
Holy
done. When I'm
Oh
done,
my
I'm
God.
done.
Fuck, do you get that? To
I don't know,
happen?
but I wish you would touch me like a gypsy
Yeah.
because I would
Rub
love
my
to
head,
get. I would
rub
love
my
to get that
head.
curse, man.
Holy shit!
I would love to get
Hey,
that curse.
Oh, the firefighter in here is shaking his head like he doesn't believe that shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the guy who slept on the couch for fucking 3
Yeah.
years, and that's amazing to me
But
that
on-
you guys
like,
can
it's
just
like-
fucking
it's
go to
just because
sleep.
Only when I get to that like exhaustive. Like I feel like I'm always, my head is always at exhaustive point.
when it's
though. Like
when
it's
I'm awake,
so much.
yeah. When I'm awake, I'm doing like it doesn't turn off. Like,
Right.
It's a million %. But and then I'm so fucking tired. Like I cannot stay awake.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can't get mine to shut off even when I was on every heavy drug that they gave me, and even when I went to medical marijuana. Like I was doping out hard,
Right.
and it would throw me down. Like I would fall asleep, but even in that sleep, I had so much chaos going on in my mind. I was scared crapless
Yeah.
out of what was going on, and then it increased my anxiety.
So
in the
let's
beginning, it was different for me
So it's
though
terrible.
because I couldn't go to sleep. I was waking up in the middle of the night, grabbing my gun, those kind of things.
Yeah,
But now, motherfucker,
You're out.
Yeah.
You're like 10-7,
I'm
bitch.
done.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Veronica and Mark's statement about how do you pick and choose who you tell? Let me start with Veronica. How do you like? Is it just cops you tell you have PTSD?
Not even all cops. Like, no, I think it's just the personal relationship I have with them. If I feel close to them or closer to them, then I will. Or whether it's like like I said, personal versus business. For sure, I'm not going to announce to the world in any of my businesses that like, oh, hey, I have PTSD, because I don't need
Right.
them to think, oh, well, she's not competent, I can't work with her.
Right.
Exactly.
But have you ever been told that?
No.
Then why would you believe that?
Because you can read people.
Because of the stigma.
Guess what your job is as a police officer?
Yeah, because
I can read your reaction like right now.
yeah, and
so
they
when
don't.
Just
someone
like it's
asks
printed.
you, someone asks you in your business, because you have two.
I do now.
The closet shit is just crazy.
It's
Whoa.
insane what
Making
people
closets.
do. Yeah.
But
I mean, I don't
Do
even want
they-
to come out of that closet.
Yeah.
They just said closet, and my butt cheeks clenched.
Whoop, don't step out of the
Whoa,
closet.
Whoa.
Oh no! Did we put that out on the air?
So
Oh,
just as much
man.
just
the
as
secret's out.
yeah, just as much as you use the fact that you were a police officer to gain customers, like, because you
So-
know that counts.
Yeah.
It
So,
does in some circles. It does.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it depends on, again, like knowing who my clients are and their background, getting to know a little bit about them, and whether I share that. But I found at first I wouldn't say anything about having been a cop. Like, I wanted no association to it at all.
Why?
When I first, it was something that just, I hated, because I felt so sick from it towards my last year. doing it. Like I hated being there. I hated being around cops. I couldn't stand the sounds of like sirens, call takers, like or dispatchers. Everything just made my head want to blow up.
Everything.
So I wanted absolutely nothing to do with that affiliation. When I started years after that, when I started feeling better, and I was like, oh wait, I actually loved being a cop.
Yeah.
I loved that environment. I loved doing what I did. Like then all of a sudden, and I had people say, like mentors say, no, you can like tell them you used to be a cop. Like that's not a bad thing. And do you really want to work with someone who doesn't like cops anyways?
Right.
And I was like, oh yeah, like I don't want to work with those people if they don't like cops. Like that's still my family. So, so I do share a lot more when I'm talking to people. And I'll say like, oh yeah, I was a cop or whatever. And it's like people are just like, I mean, most people go, oh, you don't look old enough to be
there's
retired.
that.
And I
Oh
go,
my God, you're retired.
yeah. And so, I mean, I used, I think there was a time where I said what was wrong or why I left, but now I just say like, oh, I got really sick a few years ago, so I had to leave. And most people just leave it at that. I assume they think I had some injury. I was shot on the job or something.
I don't like that, Veronica.
Yeah.
Stop doing that.
Do you see that as an opportunity when
Depends
they
on-
ask to say, like for me, what I tell people is, oh, you retired, you look old enough to retire, or how many years did you do? And I tell them, and then I just simply tell them, look, I saw one too many bad calls. That's what I tell them. One too many bad calls was enough for me. So do you think that by telling them that you're, what's the word I'm looking for? Like we're bringing awareness to the fact that cops see fucked up shit.
But I honestly don't know that regular people care.
They
You know
don't.
what I mean? So I do pick and choose who I tell, because if it's another officer or firefighter or whatever, like I'll talk to them about it, because they may have that have experienced something and they're just not out.
So
on
yeah,
it.
you're right about
So
that.
I want I'll
don't
speak
care.
I'll speak about it to people that it may help. But if it's just random Joe on the street or whatever, a client here or there, like that's not related to anyone who is a cop, who they won't be able to benefit somebody in it. There's no point in it, because then they do have that stereotype of you, and then they don't really care.
Dude, that makes me think of workers' comp telling me in my process that this is what you signed up for.
Right.
If regular people think that this is what the fuck I signed up for, like you've lost your fucking mind.
Yeah, well, none
Like
of them
that-
have a reality of it,
They just don't get it. They
No.
don't. I mean, it's still like
and they don't deserve the education.
right. And it's because it's like the
time
people
investment that you got to put
right,
into that.
because you
not
can't
worth
explain
it.
it in the 2 minutes you're talking to
Exactly.
them. They won't
it's
get
like
it.
anything else with dumb people. You can't educate them on something that they're never going to get.
You know what
in
I
a
have
30-second.
discovered is if you're honest with everyone, someone knows a cop or a firefighter, and someone knows that they've changed. That's happened to me on several occasions. Someone has asked.
But like, here, think about this, man, and we've talked about this. My Facebook page, right? So I post about everything and nothing, and then I post about PTSD, pistol, what we do, and I can post about nothing, and everybody loves it and comments and wants to be a part of it.
Yep.
I posted about pistol. I'll post
Yep.
about the podcast. I'll post about when I did share my experience, I did get a lot of positive feedback on it. But just in general, talking about it, it's like I might get like 2 likes, and it's probably these 2. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I
you
don't
know what I mean? Like,
Facebook-
no,
I don't
it's
Facebook
like
stalk
I
you.
see
taboo.
that.
Nobody
I
wants
Facebook stalk
to
Veronica.
be.
I had the same
Nobody
thing.
wants to hear it or know it or be a part of it or.
But
or
you know what?
whatever.
I think that they have their own stigma. I think that those people don't want to be stigmatized by, I know the crazy person.
Well,
Okay, but wait. This is what me and Manny had we had a competition between ourselves. Okay,
Oh.
we're gonna go and we're gonna see. Ask people that we know, close people, friends or family. We're going to ask people and see if we can get people to donate $5 on a recurring basis, $5 a month. So I thought, well, awesome.
That's $60 a year,
I'm
Mark.
going to beat his ass by getting a bunch of people,
Thanks
and
for
I'm
the
going to do
math.
it through Facebook.
And
And I
nobody
fucking
goes.
okay. This is where I'm gonna throw it all out there. So I said, some of you may not know this, but I was diagnosed in this year and blah blah blah. And I found this group, and do you know how many motherfuckers put $5 out there?
2.
I think it was 3.
3.
Yeah. I mean, I have like
Like,
a couple close friends
I
who
was so
donated
pissed
to
off.
Pistol when I've shared, but I mean, I know who will and who won't. And the thing is, like, all my cop friends, I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of cop friends on Facebook. They won't. They
won't.
stay as far away. They might see it and they might even tune into the podcast
Or
or
thumbs
whatever.
up it once
Right.
in a while.
Okay.
But they won't.
Do
They
you-
will stay as far away from being a part of it by acknowledging it, you know, publicly. That
Do you think it's because they don't want to acknowledge it, or do you think it's because people with PTSD are full of shit?
There's several
Because-
Oh, there's
several
some of those.
elements.
There are
There's-
some of those.
there are some of
because,
those.
Well,
Yeah.
I was one of those prior to my
Mhm.
critical incident.
I thought the
hate
same
to
thing.
admit it. I
Mhm.
fucking hate to admit it, but I was like,
Yeah.
these motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I was so skeptical. I was the biggest pessimist.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought, man, all counseling is a pack of liars.
oh.
People that stayed in school and
How-
everyone out and got a real
so
job. And just
of the
I had a
3 of you
terrible
here,
attitude.
did you ever stop to think that it's not normal to see the shit we see as cops?
No.
I
No.
never had.
No.
Well,
like that's what I did.
The
That,
only
that was our
difference-
No one else
job.
does it.
Well,
yeah,
the
I
only-
understand it. I never thought of a cumulative effect.
What about
hey, you can't say you knew
No,
because you had somebody on the PD that dealt with it. That was your.
No, you know what was I remember the very first traumatic call that I had. I thought to myself, motherfucker, like no one should see this shit. Someone has to, but no one should see this. And ultimately on the scene, this was in 2001, on the scene that I rolled up to, and I'll tell you the names off camera, 2 of them retired. No one, we don't get a shield over us because we get a badge. But I remember thinking to myself, no one should see this shit. And but someone has to because we have to
Right.
do the stuff that we do. I never once questioned, like, I would ask officers sometimes, are you good with that? And they would all, I knew what the answer was going to be. And maybe I asked them because I knew what the answer was going to be.
Right.
The answer was going to be, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But I asked. I wouldn't, prior to my critical incident, I wouldn't know what to do if they said I'm not fine.
Yeah.
But I knew what the answer was going to be. The answer was going to be, I'm fine.
Yeah,
but I
that's
asked.
another stigma,
Right. And that was the stigma.
which we need to turn that coin over.
Right. Being able to, like Veronica says, and Veronica and I bullshit quite a bit because I'm like, hey, can you just post another video of you doing sit-ups? Because that got like 1,000 likes.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't see that video.
Yeah. And then she
Tell me about that video. I'm gonna like that
stupid.
thing.
Yeah. No, she
Oh
posted
my
a video.
God.
She posted a video of her doing fucking. What were you doing?
It was just
Like sit-ups or something, and like there's like 10,000 likes on that motherfucker. She got shared like
Jeez.
1,000,000 times, and I'm like, hey, just do sit-ups, and then we'll put pistol underneath it because I can fucking see the shit. But we laugh because she posts shit about, I'm selling this this chair, this sign. People are like, oh my god. One day
Thumbs
she,
up. No
yeah.
one gives a shit. And then,
Then
if
she
she's doing
posts-
a sit up.
yeah,
So
then she
fucking
posts a
retarded.
fucking picture, of a podcast that we did, and people are like, "Great, it's one like,
Yeah.
one share." That's
That's
I
true.
don't
what
that
she said.
to me that is just unacceptable. When like I didn't know Mark or Veronica or the special guest that's in the vest or in the special guest that's in here tonight.
In
In
a
a
I
vest?
didn't know
Wow.
I didn't know them before Pistol, but if you knew Veronica or Mark or me or T before our critical incidents, you knew
I was the coolest.
Yeah,
Oh, I was
but
the shit.
of
I don't.
everybody.
I
No,
why?
I mean of everybody in this room. I was the coolest amongst you.
and the smallest.
That's because in the 1950s there was no internet, Mark. But
Oh
look, if you knew Veronica before her critical incidents, why would you? I never understood why you would disrespect somebody and say, I'm your friend, but I'm not going to support you in the time you need support.
I'm not going to defend people, but I'm going to say this. First of all, we're all patients. So starters, that's that. That's our camaraderie and that's our allegiance. That's why we know each other. Secondly, the civilians, let's just take the average person. when they walk by you, they say, "Hey, how's it going?" Do you really want that person to stop? Well, let me tell you, my kid is acting up.
No.
I'm getting laid off next week. My car broke down. I'm not making enough money. I signed up for this cell phone plan that's way more than I
I
can
said
afford.
no. Can you stop? No.
Yeah, exactly. What you
Then
want
don't ask.
Then what you want to say is, pretty good, or
Yeah.
good. How you doing?
But
Good.
All
don't
right.
ask. And my argument.
And it's the same thing with them, because when we post this, and I'm not defending it because, I want more likes on the post and awareness about PTSD. But when we post this, I know it takes, somebody has to stop their day where they're at as they're scanning through 1,000 posts on Facebook or whatever they're looking at. And they know when they see something coming up, fallen officer, they see something coming up, PTSD, suicide, they see anything like that from me, it's going to be an emotional investment. And if it's not in their time allotment for that at that particular time, I completely understand them not giving a thumbs up, giving a comment, and all that stuff. And again, I'm not trying to dismiss it. I'm not trying to give them an alibi out, because we certainly need more of it, and this is a cause.
I just want $5 a month.
No, but here's.
But
I don't want
I'm
your
saying
fucking
so,
thumbs up.
and I'm all I'm saying, all I'm doing is bringing that to light. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe that's why. Maybe
Well,
that's why.
But so here's my argument to that, Mark, is there's people in this world who do nothing to benefit society.
I know.
Nothing.
On the internet? Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
on the internet. So the other day, the second responder and I happened to look over a YouTube page, and
Oh, God.
And his wife teardrop.
yeah, and teardrop, and so we I couldn't figure out why. I showed him and I showed another officer. I said, there is a podcast out there where ex-cons show you how to make food, prison food, and what they eat in prison, that have 2,000 more views than we do.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that was
Okay.
one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, man, you put something on there about Cecil the Lion, and you get 10 million
Yeah.
likes,
Well, I've talked
150,000 comments a month. And
I've talked to Tanya about doing a mukbang.
I'll do a fucking mukbang.
And I think
you motherfuckers can watch me eat a burger.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck.
I think if we put
That's what a
you,
mukbang is, Mark.
I think if we put Mark,
Eating.
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's just an eating video.
It's eating shit.
That's all they do
Not
is
eating
eat.
shit. No.
Nice.
But look, at the end of the day, the stigma, if you're listening and you're watching the podcast, you're not alone with the stigma. There's 4 of us in this room, 5
Yeah.
that have that stigma. It's not true. Right? No one's going to look at you and think you're weak. We were not weak when it counted. We stood the ground. We dealt with, we had to deal with, and now we're in the situation we're in. That's just the
No, we're not weak. We're warriors with scars on
and
us.
that's just the simple fact. You know, if you think there's a stigma out there for you, and you think, well, somebody's going to think I'm weak, you can reach out to Pistol. You can reach out to West Coast. You can reach out to CopLink, and you can talk to people who have been down that road that know that you're not weak. I didn't work with Veronica. I didn't work with Mark. I don't doubt for 1 minute that they wouldn't hesitate to pull the trigger if they needed to. I don't think that they were lazy in any way. I just, like I said, we're here because we did what we were supposed to do. Right? Veronica ran up to that scene when, not that anyone else wouldn't, but you ran up there like you were supposed to. Mark went in that fucking trailer when you were supposed to. T took that guy when he popped off that round. I went in and I dealt with that fucking mom and let her see her dead kid, even to my detriment. But we're not weak. And if you think there's a stigma, you can live that life, or you can just reach out to us and we're not going to judge you.
Nope.
That's just the meat and potatoes of it. So we'll wrap it up, and this will be posted, and you guys will see it. We've been trying this for like 3 weeks now.
Yeah. Good luck.
But
Good luck
in
with that.
our high-tech studio.
But if this goes good, The picture will be sold today at $50. You can still purchase.
He's probably already left, so they have another day till the end of the month. Or
You
till
can
however many
purchase
days.
Mark's or Veronica's for 99 cents.
That's just outrageous.
It is outrageous. I'm
That's
so
a steal.
mad that they can't see mine
Shameful
to
act.
have
Yeah.
the opportunity.
Oh my God.
Well,
I'll
there's
bring 'em.
nothing to do. Yeah, there's nothing about that as to why we're not getting any bids because they can't even see our masterpieces.
We were-
There's a podcast on it, motherfuckers. Nobody wants them.
Zoom.
So
Yes, they do. They don't want to go through an hour podcast.
they just got to
Zoom to the end, folks.
Just go to the end.
Forward
I'll
to
bring
the end.
I'll bring theirs to next week so that they can stop their bitching.
Yeah. So next week we have.
Framed.
Right. With those pins.
High quality.
It only
framed
cost $1.
thumbtacks.
Yeah.
So next week we have another officer that was involved in a critical incident. Mark will be here for that.
Will I be here for that?
Yeah. Will
I
be
think
here?
so. Veronica will
Are
be
we
here.
invited?
Who's coming?
I-
It's,
Just-
it's a traumatic one, I can tell you that.
It's
definitely
a-
worth tuning in.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Man,
heavy.
You're going to be riveted.
It's gonna be
Gonna be
heavy.
riveted.
Ooh.
Mark's
Maybe I don't
Mark's
wanna
shooting
come.
was 6 seconds,
I know, right?
right? 6 seconds for
Mhm.
you, 12 seconds for him.
Yeah.
And he actually took a couple rounds. So, join us again. You can no longer buy my
Oh my gosh.
picture, but you can buy Veronica's and Mark's on clearance. Feel free to buy it on
Red tag
clearance.
special.
You're going to see it at the Dollar General.
It's good. And at the end of the day, you're not a second responder, so it's a good day if you're not a second responder. All right. So to each of us, as always, as we end it, to us and those like us, right? You guys have a good time, and we'll see you next time.